everyone. I'm Savita Raina, VP of Marketing here at Nebius, and I have the pleasure of having Devang with us today. Devang, can you take the honors of introducing yourself?
Of course. I'm Devang Sachdev, and I focus on non-organic growth and product strategy at Nebius. Believe it or not, Savita, I was here in 2010 at San Jose Convention Center when Jensen announced CUDA to the world. And I was one of the first product managers for CUDA and HPC at the time. And a big part of my job was to explain to people that GPUs aren't just faster CPUs. They aren't just add-ons to CPUs. They're actually a whole different computing substrate based on parallel programming. And most people didn't understand it. It took AlexNet, a big research breakthrough, for people to internalize it and for the rest of the AI industry to kind of start expanding around it. I think this misunderstanding is existing today in a different context. So in today's context, it's no longer about CPU versus a GPU, but it's more around GPU cloud or a parallel computing-based cloud in context with a hyperscaler CPU-based cloud. They're not just add-ons, that's a lot of people here might think, but they're actually a whole different paradigm. And the way with the kind of workloads that we have with AI, which are long context models, reasoning, army of agents, that the cloud computing infrastructure needs to be rethought and actually redesigned around this parallel computing paradigm. So I believe that was a mistake or misunderstanding at the time. I believe it still exists, and hopefully this time I can actually bring a change to it.
Tell us that it's not just an AI cycle shift, but a deeper compute program paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
This is a really good question. A lot of us are asking ourselves this question, that are we in some sort of an AI hype cycle, some sort of a super cycle of investment in AI and in technological development, or are we truly at this platform shift where the way that we do computing is changed? And to me, I've observed three things, and they're all happening at the same time. Number one is the economics. So today, a cost per flop, which is a unit of computing, is 1,000 times cheaper than what it was a few years ago.
Wow.
The compute capacity, GPU compute capacity particularly, is 30 times more available than it was a few years ago. And they're not slowing down anytime soon. If you heard Jensen yesterday, it's just going to continue going down this pace for several more years. The second thing that is, and anytime you've seen this kind of economical change, it has created new categories, at the very least. The second part of this is that we're starting to see that this is not, that the workloads themselves are quite different.
Yeah.
The workloads are no longer just about model training, they're also about inference, and not just inference, but inference at scale.
Yeah.
And it requires a whole new underlying infrastructure, which is being redesigned right now. And then the third thing is the architecture itself, like the every layer from semiconductor all the way up to the application is being redesigned. And when you see economics change, when you see architecture change, and when you see the workloads change, I believe that we are now seeing a platform transition rather than a short-term hype cycle that we might see move out under us.
I completely agree and understand like the three things you talked about in terms of how the workloads are changing and how the enterprises are also adopting. There's a huge adoption happening. It's no longer a hype, it's more than a hype. There's reality in action. So the question I have is, where do you see the real bottlenecks while the customers are transitioning, their workloads are moving from production, from experimentation to production?
Yeah, as we move into this next stage of what I would call AI at scale, the real bottleneck for production is no longer the intelligence. It's more about execution. And a lot of our customers tell us that, everything works when we're doing a demo. But the moment we try to put things into production, things start to fail. And they fail, usually it's three things that break when you try to put AI into production. Number one is the cost. It's no longer about cost per token.
Yeah.
It's about cost per task outcome.
Yeah.
The second thing is that it's the control, which is when you have it's no longer about a model endpoint that you're interacting with.
Right.
You're interacting with multiple models. You're interacting with underlying systems for memory and retrieval. you're now building an army of agents on top of these things, and you have multiple applications that have been deployed in production. That requires a pretty significant amount of orchestration and control, and if you don't, then your outcomes are going to be pretty inconsistent. And the third part is that you're just going to start seeing a lot of these agents, agent-related work, just compound errors. So reliability is key. When you have long-running agents with multiple steps, any single error can introduce a compounding change in unreliability for systems to do their job right, especially in an enterprise setting. So as we move towards this next phase, it's not just about better models or more GPUs. To us, it's about better systems. And especially at an inference layer, we need to have systems that can orchestrate around deployment, scalability, routing, serving, and optimization of these inference systems, and that's what we're focused on.
So you talked about the inference, and which I think, like Jensen even yesterday talked about how that is going to be an important part of that AI adoption in terms of the next stage. In your opinion, where do you see Nebius fitting in this equation, and how are we really helping our customers achieve their goals, especially both on of course we have achieved a great deal on the training side, but on the inference side, just your point of view on that front.
Yeah, so I've been with Nebius for 6 weeks now. It feels like it's been forever, but everything that stood out for me from the outside, I feel has been validated from the inside. And like I said before, that we are very much focused on systems, and we believe that that's what's needed. A systems level development is needed for this next phase of AI, which is putting AI at scale in production. I see a lot of Nebius not just as a capital allocator, but more as a capital and technology allocator. And to me, 3 things really stand out about it. We're really building for what's next. Whether it's in terms of working very closely with NVIDIA, partnering with them to get Blackwell, Vera Rubin, and many others beyond into large-scale production, or whether it's planning for large-scale capacity. This year we've announced 3 gigawatts of capacity plan, a significant bump from what we had last year. And I think that definitely showcases that we're building at a system scale. I think another thing that stood out for me is our focus on inference, which is what we call token factory, and how do we see that as a key approach for us to help enterprises go to market, enterprises take these productions into production as well. Again, alongside better serving, better orchestration, better routing, and being able to build better agents. And then lastly is around the fact that our ultimate goal is to be able to create the best developer experience, so that any developer around the world, and we believe that there are going to be millions of more developers who we wouldn't even call in traditional cells as developers, who are going to be building AI. And for them, we want them to find Nebius as the place to start, deploy, and scale their applications from day one. And this has been a key focus for us, and this is very close to my heart. So for me, between these 3 things, Nebius is the place to be at, and to me, the winning formula here, both with my hat as an operator and investor from past, is one that are not just scaling infrastructure, but one that are thinking about this from the ground up with first principles and building an experience that the users will really benefit from.
No, that's great. I think that's exactly what not only the AI native companies need, they also enterprise focused developers are also looking for. My next question to you is, you're focusing on the non-organic growth. What does that really mean?
Yeah, very fair question. So, for us, non-organic growth really means that we recognize that the AI stack is too large and moving too fast for any one company to build it all. Whether it's NVIDIA, whether it's OpenAI, or whether it's Nebius.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's about bringing together this ecosystem in a way in which every layer of the stack is tightly coupled. So infrastructure, your GPU infrastructure, inference, agents, applications, and tools around it are all very tightly coupled in a way AI builder or developer really benefits from this experience. A good example of this is agentic search. So when you think about agents, as for them to be extremely productive and predictable, they need real-world data, and they need this real-world data in real time. Agentic search tools allow them to go out in the web, bring this data back and ground the responses from the models that have been trained with prior sets of data, snapshots of data. And this is how we've thought about our acquisition of Tavili. That Tavili is an agentic search, one of the leading agentic search providers in the market. And we announced an acquisition about a month ago. And truly, I don't think about it even as a transaction. It is more for us as a strategic addition to our team. Now, when I think about kind of the way that we think about non-organic growth, it spans across build, ourselves, buy or acquire, and partner. And the partnership aspect of it is very critical because there are many ecosystems that are starting to take shape. Some of them are already pretty large, like Ray, for example, from Anyscale, or whether it's SkyPilot from the Berkeley lab, whether it's OpenClaw now, and we don't know what other ecosystems will suddenly take off. And it's very important for us to, again, be participate in this ecosystem in a way in which it all works in a tightly coupled fashion. So we have deep strategic relationships and partnerships with some of these companies, and we continue to go down that path. So for us, it's less about thinking about this in a binary way. We want to think about non-organic growth as a pretty strategic way for us to shape the ecosystem. And again, making it not just about better models or more GPUs, but making it truly about systems that enterprises can deploy.
No, this is great. I think this makes sense. Like, we are trying to do our best. If I have to put it in my own words, best way to deliver value to our customers, whether that means integrating those solutions within our ecosystem, or investing them, or even buying them in some form or fashion to deliver that value. Thank you, Devang. It was such a great conversation, and I'm definitely looking forward to more.
Thank you, Savita. If I may just add one little more plug, I would say that we're hiring. So if anybody's watching this and wants to become part of Team Nebius, please join us. Thank you, Savita.
Must want to that. Thank you.